Peace and respect, everyone. Welcome to the after show with Tobin, so far with also Orge and Khalil Allah. All right, guys. So we were talking about logic, and I think that's where the after show is gonna pick up.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm thinking. So Tobin and Justin know each other a little bit, not very, very much. And Justin, you were making observations about the conversation in the regular show. Would you share those observations with everyone?
Yeah. So, Tobin, I totally understand where you're coming from. When we spoke last, I was an atheist. Obviously, now I have converted or reverted, if you will, to Islam. And I was just wondering what some of your scruples with Islam were, so I may be able to try and clear those up for you. Because at one point in time, I did have those same issues, and I looked into it a little bit more. Actually, went over to Afghanistan for a deployment with the military, and was opened up a door to a whole new light on Islam. So I was just trying to figure out what type of issues you might have with Islam and ways that I may be able to fix that for you.
Well, there are some things that universally across the board with these major religions that it is confusion. It itself is perpetuating confusion. Mm-hmm. People would be better off if we were using logic, reasoning, and truth, the scientific method. We would be able to strive for better well-being of our earth. All of this religion, all it's doing is confusing people and driving wedges between families. There's different doctrines that everyone's trying to have their say in. Some of them will go as far as doing violent actions towards others.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that? Now this is just a open question. Do you think that atheism does that?
No. Atheist is just what you think about one claim, and that's it. The spectrum of how people think is very wide.
Would you be open? Would you be open to me sending you some of the death threats that I've gotten from atheists since I converted to Islam?
It wouldn't. That wouldn't be something that would be very convincing to me.
No, but would it be convincing to you that atheism does perpetuate violence at some level also?
No.
Why? Is it just the people that are doing that?
The thing is if you're saying you're going to send what is letters and stuff like that, how do I know that there were actual genuine atheists that were promoting that? There's a lot of information that you would have to actually go through to be able to have an investigation to where you would be able to go, atheism is causing violence and you're getting threatened by atheists.
Okay.
I'm not a court of law. I'm not a court of law. And that would be something that would need to be verified and beyond me.
Have you verified? Go ahead, Org.
Yeah, I'm sorry. What was it? Kali? Is that what you prefer?
Khalil.
Khalil. Okay, thank you. Khalil. So, are you proposing the argument that atheism caused these people to send you these threats in the same way that, for example, I could say Islam caused someone to send a death threat, like with say the South Park creators.
Yeah, so what I'm doing is taking a claim that was made that Tobin had made in the main show, that I think Richard was trying to draw a distinction between the practitioners of a belief system or ideology, and show how that person, that practitioner, is not it should not be representing the belief itself, that people can be horrible and people can do horrible things. So what I was asking Tobin was that the atheists who are part of atheism, and that's the common denominator between the threats that I was getting, all the hate that I was getting, should I attribute that to atheism? And he said no, that it was just the people. So I was asking him why his standards change when it comes to a religion, that why not just attack the practitioners of the religion themselves rather than
that are inside of that book that cause the confusion, that they are basing their reason for doing said action.
So it's quite clear in the Quran that states that the only time you should kill the infidels or slay the infidels are if they are attacking you. It specifically states in Surah Al-Baqarah that if your oppressor puts his sword down, then you put your sword down and treat him like a brother. So what about self-defense is perpetuating violence?
I'm talking about what is and what happens. What
by the practitioners.
That book says. That book is perpetuating violence, misogyny, among other bad habits.
But you said the book itself, right?
People are using that. And it's some people only use it itself, and they're not studying anything else because they have such a deeply held belief that that's all that they learn about. And the world is a bigger place than what any of those books will ever teach anybody.
I understand that, but also I could say in the same sense, using the same logic that you just did, to say that the atheist community is so centered in on their ideology, on what they think is right and wrong, that the minute that I leave atheism, that they are using atheism itself to promote violence. I'm just trying to figure out how your standards of evidence are changing.
You're making me try to make a decision based on something that I don't even know to be true.
All that I'm trying to do is get you to realize that there are people that do horrible things, that there are people in every group and every culture that are quote-unquote radicalist or extremist that do stupid things. And I don't think that you should blame the ideology. I don't blame atheism for the death threats that I've gotten. I'm not going to say atheism itself is to blame. I just think there are bad people that do bad things. So I wouldn't blame Islam or Christianity or the belief itself. I would blame people for being horrible people. Do you understand that?
Oh, God, I keep messing up the name. Khalili?
If you want to call me Justin, that's fine, because that's my legal name.
Whatever you prefer, man. I'll get it right.
It don't matter to me. I don't want to confuse anybody.
Do you have an example, in your opinion, of a religion or a belief that does cause these issues?
That a religion
where you can blame the doctrine as opposed to the individual. Do you have
where you can blame the doctrine with a specific reading frame? Yes, you can do that with pretty much all holy books.
Okay,
and even non-holy books.
Yeah.
Okay, so your argument is that broad scope no, but small scope yes. Sort of.
What I value when having conversations with other people with different beliefs is doing what's called an internal critique. So I really don't care what I think about their holy book. I'd like to figure out what they believe about their holy book.
Well, I'm doing that same thing to you, right?
Yeah, yes. Yeah, sure. So I wouldn't think that anything within my holy book perpetuates violence. My holy book, the verses, the surahs and ayahs that state when to attack and when to slay people is simply just in self-defense of the oppressors itself. I think it's Surah Al-Baqarah, Surah 2, verse 191 is the most popular one that atheists bring up and cherry pick and say, well, it says slay the infidels wherever you find them. But the verse before and the verse after that state that only slay them if they are oppressing you and trying to kill you. And the verse after that states that if they put their swords down, and you put your sword down and treat them like a brother. So I see that as simply self-defense. And I haven't really been able to see anybody bring any other verses that simply just state cut people's heads off because they're not Muslim.
Why even use any of it to even be? Why even use the Quran? What is it that can do anything to benefit your life?
Well, I've lost 12, or actually about 14 pounds in the last couple weeks. I'm celebrating Ramadan. So I'm fasting. I don't eat or drink anything during the daytime. So actually, I've been looking to lose weight. So I think that's one good thing that actually happened out of it. Also within Islam,
is weight loss. First time I've ever heard that. For that.
So along with that, also the first martyr, the first person to die for the name of Islam was a woman. A woman was the one who was the first one to die for Islam. Also, Islam, the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, was also within Islam working towards getting women to be able to choose who they marry and when they marry them. He was trying to get away from arranged marriages. Would you say that getting away from arranged marriages and giving women a choice be a good thing?
There is a lot more to that. In the end of it all it is doing is driving wedges in between people. I can't even get to like considering the verses and things and what the book says, because I cannot be moved from why should I even crack that book open to even accept it for anything?
That's fine. I'd like to stay on topic. I much appreciate your input, but I would like an answer to the question. You said in the show that the Quran, that Muslims within Islam, there is not one good thing that comes out of that. So when I say that Muhammad, peace be upon him, was trying to create a playing field to where women could choose who they marry and when they marry them, would you think that is a good thing?
Not for those reasons. Nope.
What reasons? For women to have equal rights?
No, for using the Quran to get to the point to where you're like, oh, no, this is not it.
If the Quran was the starting point of the progress for equal rights for women, wouldn't that be a good thing? I think any reason that progressive.
I don't think the equality is there. It's not something that is.
Can you show me
something that is?
Can you show me a verse where the equality is not there? There's a whole entire chapter made for women and wives and how you treat your wives.
I did bring up a specific verse earlier, whenever it was talking about the value of women and what they can inherit. That is what I brought up.
Okay. So I think that your, and I totally understand. I think that your dislike for Islam is clouding your view to see that women's rights, progressing women's rights in any way in any culture, would be a good thing, would be a positive thing.
They're not progressing because of Islam. It's because of other movements that are pushing those ideas.
Now, this is specifically out of the book for the Prophet Muhammad did push for women's rights.
There's plenty of those women that are still repressed from people who are still in line with that ideology.
I said progress, not complete fixing the problem. Progress of some sort is good, right?
Cut. Jesus. Well, say it
Just
again.
tell me, Justin.
Fine, if you insist. Justin, I'm sorry about that. By
You're
the way,
good. You're good.
I can't decipher what's on the screen there. Why do you think that it did not complete after Muhammad's passing?
Well, because we still have oppression of women's rights today.
Well, why do we, if Muhammad was pushing towards that, he's such a central figure in the religion, why did his wishes not continue, do you think?
What do you mean, did they not continue? Do women not have the ability to choose?
He was pushing towards, in your words, he was pushing towards more openness for women. I can't remember your exact phrasing. He was pushing towards that, right?
Rage, there's a link in the description. Come on and we'll talk about that.
So he was pushing towards that, but he did not succeed, as you just said, the rights for women. Why didn't it succeed?
How do you know that it didn't succeed?
Well, you just said he was pushing towards it, but he didn't complete it. You just said
that. Yeah. So he was pushing for progress on women's rights.
Yes. There we go. Progress. Sorry.
Yeah. So the progress did happen. I mean, if we look at women today, in most countries in the world, they choose who they marry.
Yes.
Okay. So the progress happened. So that would be a good thing, right?
But so he did complete the progress in your eyes?
Then? I never said he completed it. I just said that there was progress that was made due to him trying to create progress, which the progress can be demonstrated today with women being able to choose who they marry. So I think Tobin just has such hatred for Islam that he doesn't want to say that it's a good thing.
It's not hatred. It's not hatred. Dude, I have no hatred for you. I'm not going to. I may speak passionately, but
sure. I don't think you hate me. I think you hate Islam.
I don't. I firmly disagree with using any of those ancient texts in order to be able to make a better life. That I have no use for it. It has not been helpful to me at all. If anything, it caused like trauma to me that I had to be able to figure out. And it was ideas and concepts that got me out of that. And to where I'm now a functioning human being. I don't worry about being depressed or any I don't have issues that I'm like having to work through. It's not been a help to me. You have to understand, I have been exposed.
The fact that
I have worked for people who are Muslims, who identified as Muslims, who were working here and sending money over back there to for their families and put their families through school and stuff like that. Like
great people.
Everyone, say hello to Raging
I have
Atheist.
been friendly.
Hey,
I have hung out with people who identify as Muslims, and there's actually a very wide spectrum, just like Christianity. Like I've had people of a darker skin color that that are Muslim, and they have kind of a different way.
Why are we talking about skin color?
Tobin, what is
I'm trying to delineate a difference between like a doctrine of Muslim. I'm sorry, because I'm just saying I've been exposed to different denominations. There's the freaking word right there. I've been exposed to different denominations of the Muslims, and I have had friends. I still will make friends with people that are of that background.
Curious.
But
hold on real quick. What denominations of Islam have you been exposed to?
Man, okay, look, there's like people who follow like Louis Farrakhan, right? Like, I'm not going to say that I have a complete understanding of all of Islam, but I know enough to where I just know that it's
How many schools of thought are there?
How many schools of thought are there?
Yeah, that's one of the most basic questions about Islam.
There's 4 schools of thought, but depending on who you ask, there can be separate denominations. I'm not too familiar with them. I think like within Islam, like any religion, you're going to have different interpretations with different people.
Sure. So yeah, Rage is right. There's 4 schools of thought within Islam. I hold to a specific school of thought that may completely disagree with a different school of thought. I come from I'm looking and leaning more towards what's called a Maliki background, a Maliki school of thought. So there's Sunnis and Shias, and that's
Yes.
the 2 main
Okay.
ones. I'm
Yeah,
a Sunni.
that is something I'm familiar with. Yes.
Okay. And then I adhere to the Maliki school of thought, which
Okay.
is basically the most liberal, free, easygoing school of thought there is within Islam. So all the horrible stuff that you would say Islam has done, I will outright right now condone, or not condone, but I will speak against, and I will cancel the hell out of terrorism or violence or anything like that.
Yeah, I think what you're going to find here in this country is, and not to say anything bad about anybody, it's just the way it is. Kind of, we deal with Christianity because Christianity surrounds us, or most people anyway. So there is, like, even for myself, a level of ignorance when it comes to Islam. Now, I happen. I read the Quran a long time ago, so I don't even try to base any of my knowledge off of that. But I've talked to a lot of Muslims or ex-Muslims, and I did a lot of research on the Caliphate. So that's most of where my knowledge of Islam comes from. I know a little bit about the Hadith, and I am planning on trying to get back into the Quran and refresh myself because it's been like 20 years since I read it.
Sure. Yeah. So, Rage, you were saying something in the chat about Aisha.
Yeah, well, because for a long time I went with there's some scholarship out there that said that indicated that Aisha was actually 18 when the marriage was consummated, and I brought this up with several Muslims, and every one of them got mad at me for it. So it's like I've come to the decision now that whatever age she was, and I think that there is clear indication that she was 9 when they consummated, after I've talked to all of these Muslims about it. But whatever age she was, if she was 18, Islam thinks she was 9, and that's what matters, I think.
So there are people that disagree. Like, for example, I hold to the fact that she was actually 19. And I feel like I have
there is scholarship out there.
I have ways to try and substantiate that claim that she was actually 19. Because I'm not going to sit here and try and say some things that'll come off as justifying pedophilia, because that's the last thing that I want to do. There's one hadith that states that she was married at 9, married at 6, consummated at 9. But if you do look, there are certain things, there are certain tests that that females have to go through, intellectual and an intellectual test to see if they're ready for womanhood, see if they're ready enough to have children and be a mother and be an adult. There's certain tests that you have to go through. So if she went through that test at 6 years old, it doesn't make any sense, because she would have to go through the test again at 9 when she actually started having, her period. When she started menstruating, was able to have children and producing eggs. So it wouldn't make any sense to me that the test would have been done before she was even able to mother children. That's one thing that I would see, because Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, would have to go against the Quran to be able to do that. Also, if you look at his sister, at Aisha's older sister, she was 10 years older than her, and there's multiple places in Hadith that you can find this information. Basically, let's see. She was 10 years apart.
I don't know why this is important, though.
Well, because Raging Atheist wanted to know about it. So if you could give us just a few minutes.
I made the statement in context to women's rights. Although once you're finished, Khalil,
I'm sorry,
I'll actually agree with you a bit. On
Yeah.
I did study the history.
So it said that Asma died in the year 73 Hijri, which she was age 100. right? And if you look at the migration, the year of the Hijra, or the Prophet's migration from Mecca to Medina, that shows that her age at the time, you can easily conclude that she was 27 years old during the Hijra. Now, if she's 27 years old, that puts Aisha, who was 10 years younger than her, at the age of 17 during the same period. And as all biographers of the Prophet agree that he consummated his marriage with Aisha in the year 2 Hijra, which can be conclusively said that she was actually 19 at the time, not 9 like the other hadith had said. So I think there's actually an issue with the other hadith, which means, hadith is not the actual, God-breathed word, so it could be wrong.
Yeah, they didn't take down Muhammad's accounts during his life. I think it came sometime after, and I would say that considering that fairly successfully, they did a pretty good job. And yeah, I'm very familiar with that line of thought, and yeah, there's a lot of. I would hope that there's a lot of Muslims that agree, but I still think that there's issue. So when I studied the caliphate, what I saw was Muhammad trying to solve an issue of poverty because he grew up in poverty, and trying to make a better Arabia. And I will agree, like for his time, he was kind of a reformer, and he did do a lot for women's rights in Arabia at the time. I mean, they basically were nothing at the time, and he did give them status. But I mean, if we use our modern lens looking back, and it's very easy to do because there hasn't been much reformation. Now, there are schools of thought that have become much more liberal, which is, what I've said about you. Like, I don't really care about your deconversion. If you're going to be a liberal Muslim and have a voice of reason, that's all I really care about, because I feel like Islam really needs that.
Just a second, guys. I got a woman to oppress here. Marty, will you please try to use your mic? Okay, you're muted.
Yeah, I think
you're muted on your end. You're not muted in StreamYard, okay?
So I do
now
think...
you're muted in StreamYard. Now you're unmuted in StreamYard. You're muted somewhere else.
You must be muted in your computer, Marty.
It's not Maybe Richard oppressing you.
This time.
This time. Maybe some other time I'll try to oppress Marty. She won't really go for that, though. She's pretty independent.
But I do think it was very progressive at the time, but I also think that there hasn't been much or any reformation over the years. So, when we look at, later in years when he made his wives cover their faces. Now, I don't think it's in hadith that's something that women actually have to do, but because the Prophet did it, now it's become this like tradition. And when you look at theocracies that are born from Islam, pretty much all of them, by today's standards, oppress women. So I think that there is issues there, but I definitely agree. Like for the time period when Muhammad was alive, that dude did a lot to make Arabia a better place than it was before.
Yeah, and I think that's basically all I was trying to get through to Tobin, was that even though he sees a lot of horrible stuff happening within Islam, that he made the claim that nothing good has ever come out of religion. And I wanted to see if maybe just one point he will concede to and say that at least one good thing came out of religion.
Real quick, can you hear me?
No.
Yes.
No. Okay, that's it. I just want to make sure. Go ahead, keep going. Sorry.
Now, another thing that I saw too, or heard, because I just got home from work, so I'm tired. I'm not going to hang out too long. Was the passages, and I think that you're right, and I think atheists do cherry pick. I posted one of the verses on Facebook, and somebody actually had pointed that out to me, and I went back and looked, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's the verse. It does kind of clarify, but there are a lot of people that do take these texts seriously, and they do take them as dogma, as God pretty much saying, and you do have this issue within Islam about people of the book and people who aren't of the book, and I think how when I ask a Muslim that question, and that's usually one of the first questions I'll ask is, how do you feel about people that are not of the book? And depending on that answer is how I'm going to judge them.
So
and
people
decide if I can move forward.
People of the book are actually considered as like the Jews and the Christians. Because it states that the people of the book were the ones who twisted their tongues and changed the words of God. Change the words themselves, and that's why the new revelation had to come down to basically fix everything that the Jews and Christians had twisted around.
See, the way I understand it, people of the book are Muslims, and people are not of the book are everybody else.
So I could look up a specific one people of the book. I'll look up a specific verse to where it says the people of the So in the Quran, the term al-Kitab, people of the book refers to Jews, Christians, and Sabians. The scriptures refer in the Quran and the Torah, al-Taurat, or the Psalms, the al-Zubur, and the Gospel, the al-Anjil. So the people of the book are specifically Jews, Christians, and
first
Sabians.
Thing I pulled up, holy crap! And that goes to kind of like my first point, like. I think I'm a little more familiar than a lot of people are, and I get shit wrong all the time.
You probably are more educated than a lot of people on these topics, and yeah, it's easy to mistake this stuff.
It's okay. We learned something tonight.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I've always found.
Right. Everyone enjoyed the after show, and thanks for stopping by. And we're going to shut it off. Right? I'm just kidding. Don't lose your smiles.
Yeah, well, I'm about to go to bed, but the thing that I find Islam more fascinating than Christianity. Maybe it's because I've always been surrounded by Christianity and I know it. I'm more familiar with it, and there's that mystery. But I do find I will walk into some walls sometimes because of presumptions that I have about it. But I think the important thing for me is trying to differentiate and say, hey, not all Muslims are bad people, but then, there are some horrible things happening in the world, and we need to talk about those, and we need to find a way to talk about those things without breeding bigotry. So, I mean, that's kind of like the fine line with it, and it's a really hard line to walk.
Yeah. You don't want to stereotype, generalize a group of people being horrible, because, I mean, it's just not conducive to building these bridges. Tobin says he doesn't want to create a divide. What's up?
I got a question for you, Justin. When does the Quran demand that your wife become Islam?
Actually, it teaches against demanding my wife to be Islam, because Islam means to submit. Submit means that she herself needs to want to inside sincerely want to come to God. Right now, my wife is an atheist. She does not believe in God.
What's your plan to manipulate her so she conforms to that?
I don't, because that would be against my religion. My religion.
But certainly, you're going to find some way to convince her that you're right and that she's wrong, and you're gonna have to use logic and persuasion. Maybe like personal bribery. I mean, certainly it's not outside of the rules to like withhold love or something.
The only thing that I'm going to do is conduct myself like a humanist and conduct myself as a good human being. And if she makes some type of correlation between Islam and that, which I don't know how she would, because I've already, even as an atheist, am trying to exemplify those traits. That would be the only way that I would try and convince her to come over, is just by being a good person. But like I said, I've already been trying to do that, so I don't think that she's going to make a correlation between me being a good person and Islam.
Yeah, I've seen different things. I've seen, and it really depends on the school of thought and part of the world that you come from. But I see Muslims go after women hardcore, and then I see Muslims who are rather free thinking about it. And I think that from what I've read, Justin's actually right that it's about submission, and you can't, a person can't submit if they're being forced. But there are different schools of thoughts on that.
She's not really submitting to Allah if she's just becoming a Muslim because her husband is. Yeah. It doesn't make any sense.
Here in America, we are more used to Farrakhan's.
Who's got the TV on?
You'd probably hear my husband watching TV knowing.
I think that was a Farrakhan thing. Everybody saw the Muhammad Ali movie.
I would suggest to everybody, if anybody wants to watch a movie, there's a movie called The Message. It's on YouTube. It's quite a long movie. It's very, very interesting. It's a movie. The closest the closest to the actual account of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. And it's an enjoyable movie. Like my wife has sat down and watched it with me, and she has no interest in learning about Islam or anything, but it does tell the life of the Prophet. You know, it's a movie from the 70s, but it's quite interesting, and you know, you learn a few things when you watch that movie.
Does your wife think you're
I don't
going
think
through
people
a
realize.
stage right now?
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Does your wife think you're going through a stage that she hopes you're going to pop out of?
Very possibly. Very possibly, because I've been having conversations with people, and me and her get in arguments all the time because she's like, why do you got to be so logical? So I'm always pointing out like fallacies and stuff like that. Spoiler alert, don't ever do that with your spouses. It never ends well.
Well, shouldn't she be? She should appreciate the logic. As an atheist, she should appreciate the logic, though, right?
Yeah, not when it works against her.
Right.
Yeah, you
What's
might
up,
want to.
Marty, you were quiet for a long time. Speak up, Marty.
No, I was just going to say, you might want to make like a public service announcement. Hey, everybody, don't do this with your spouse. It never turns out well. Like, just put that in the description on your channel, right? As soon as anybody comes on, so everybody knows, you just helping
don't debate your wife like I'm about to debate this person.
Yeah.
Because more often than not, guess who's right?
Well, I mean, you can't really argue that when you're on the couch that night because you needed to make a logical point.
Well,
No, for real. I gotta chime in now. I gotta chime in because I started becoming aware of reasoning and making deductive arguments and stuff. I introduced it to my wife, and I was like, dude, anytime we disagree, let's try to apply this to it. And I shit you not, it actually really helped us think about things and make better decisions.
Are you saying you have the secret formula, Tobin?
Well, I think it
You
could
know,
open
I
up
don't
some
think
good
it's a
communication.
secret formula. It's out there for everybody to learn.
here's the secret formula: communication.
But
That's too difficult. Screw that.
I don't know if she's going off about taking the trash out. I don't think tossing out like that. That's
Well,
a black
can
swan
you
fallacy, huh?
define exactly what trash is? Because
Yeah,
I'm not really sure.
Let me help
Does
you.
that
Let me
trash
help
What
you.
direction is out?
Let me help you out as the only woman in the house. It's not about the actual trash. It's maybe we asked you like a week ago, and we have other crap that we're trying to do, and maybe that would take 2 seconds off our hands so we can do something else, and then you don't do it, and we have to do it, and we say, well, guys, I asked you to help me out with this.
How can we be to blame when we are created with selective hearing?
Yeah.
And put that as a disclaimer on your thing too. Yes.
Are you telling me that I can choose to not be selective with my hearing?
See, this is all kind of alien to me. The only memories I have of spousal marriage is childhood. So that was a long time ago. I'm just kind of speaking out of my ass.
Yeah, but you had a long-term relationship though, not didn't
I've
you?
had several of those, but I've never been
Yeah,
married.
so
Never been married.
So same thing. What's up, Richard?
Marty, I got a question for you. Concerning your husband, you don't have to respond if you don't want to, if it's too personal or whatever. Just tell me, is your husband still worth saving?
Saving like from the zombies or like his soul? Like, what do you mean saving?
I mean, is your husband worth your effort?
Oh, I mean, I guess. I mean, it's been.
You got to be careful how you answer that.
Yeah, it's true. Because I mean, I straight up. I'm joking.
What she's not doing is denying that she's trying to save him.
I mean, jokingly, one night I told him I would push him in front of the zombies to save the cats and the dog. Oh. So like, because the cats.
Hey, you know what? That goes to show something that I've been trying to say for a long time: that women, children, and animals are loved unconditionally, and men are loved as long as they have something to offer.
I mean, I mean, hey, my dog. No, scratch that. My dog's pretty smart. He's smarter than he lets on. So, and he offers protection. You know, if somebody looks at me the wrong way, he'll freak out. So that's good. So he has something to offer. The cats can hunt vermin, so they have something to offer.
You have to be careful on how you answer that question. Like, for example, I was on Your Friendly Neighborhood Atheist, Ethan Michael, his show the other night. And I had specifically said that I'm not going to go out and profess my beliefs to people and go to speaker's corner and shove my religion down people's throats. I'm going to kind of stay in my own place. You know, I'm going to stay in my house, as Christopher Hitchens says, and play with my toys in my own house. I'm not going to try and get you or your kids to play with my toys.
Mm-hmm.
And then a comment came through, said, but if you really believe this, aren't you a piece of shit for not going out and trying to save those people? I'm like, hold on. Win either way. If I'm shoving it down your throat, I'm an asshole for shoving it down your throat. And if I keep it to myself, now I'm being an asshole for not trying to save people. Like,
I never really understood that, honestly. Like, so we live in the modern world. We all have access to the data, right? Like, and outside of that, wouldn't the God do it if he was going to do it, right? Like wouldn't he reveal himself to me if he was going to do that by now?
I knew Richard was going to be like, yep.
Okay. Divine hiddenness, right? That's the question. Divine hiddenness. Why?
Yeah.
And let's look at the opposite. If heaven were parked in the sky and you could point at it, why the hell are we on this earth? Okay, that would make no sense. But right now, we're allowed to have arguments. We're allowed to have suffering. We're allowed to have free will as well, as much as we can have free will, which I think is actually better to say free won't. I choose what I won't do. So the divine hiddenness thing is not actually a challenge. And especially if you consider that forced inoculation that you just asked about, the forced inoculation is described in the book of Revelation. So there is that does exist where necessary and reasonable. I'm saying reasonable evidence will be given. Okay. And you don't have to believe till then. Not at all.
Well, that's kind of what I'm getting to, though. Like, so for you, correct me if I'm wrong, Richard. I'm trying to remember your story. You was like, what, 43? You had a vision or a dream, and that dream turned out to be true about a constellation, right? So you believe that, you know, God revealed that to you, and you have this truth. What I'm saying is, you probably still be an atheist if God hadn't done that, right?
True story. I would be right now.
So, I mean, I'm 43 myself right now. Either God's going to do it or not going to do it. So my point in relation to, you know, preaching on a street corner or trying to evangelize me into your religion, I was like, at this point in my life, I've been exposed to the data. It's going to be God or nothing at this point, right?
Right.
You know, like,
that's fair. No, that's totally fair, though. You're not saying something unreasonable.
Yeah.
It's Christians misquoting the Bible that's saying God is unreasonable. It's not the Bible itself that says that.
Yeah. Well, how do you know you're going to be receptive?
I would disagree with that,
sign?
but you know me, we could argue.
How do you know you're going to be receptive to the sign? I mean, I think a lot of atheists always want a sign, but if they really were to get one, how do you know you wouldn't write it off as a hallucination of some sort? Right?
Well, if it was truly a sign from God, would I even be able to?
If my conversion had to do with
a free will choice, yeah. Like
if my conversion had to do with a personal experience of some sort, I wouldn't be a Muslim. I'd be checking myself into the hospital, figuring out what the hell's wrong with me. So I just don't understand how someone, and I'm not trying to tear it down, saying that it's not a real, like, you know, legitimate reason or conversion. I don't know. It very well could be. God may choose how he comes to people and convinces people. Me, myself, it was strictly on a rational basis. It had nothing to do with a personal experience or anything like that. I didn't get a revelation of any sort or anything like that.
And I'm not sure how Islam does it, but like Christians, a lot of Christians I talk to, they talk about, like, they know because they've had these experiences. They have this feeling like, they'll pray and they'll feel God there. Right. That I was a Christian for a long time and I never felt that. That's why I stopped becoming a Christian. So I guess that's my point now is, maybe I will because, Khalil, after our conversation, I'm studying philosophy like a bitch now. I got a headache, from it, but maybe I will using deductive logic, and that would be something that happened on my own. I don't see that happening, but I could see that as something that happened on my own. But outside of that, at this point in my life, as dug in as I am, it's going to take some serious God work to bring me around.
Whether God exists or not is a philosophical endeavor. It's not a logical endeavor. So once you start to realize that, you can get closer.
Wait a minute.
I might be a bit biased going into it.
Well, wait a minute. I saw a flaw in that, JG.
I'm saying whether God exists or not is a philosophical question.
You actually just laid out like my criticism of philosophy, honestly.
You want to go ahead and hit that? You want to go ahead and hit that? I know it's killing you, Khalil. Go ahead.
Yeah, I definitely want to try to jump into that. So I'll let you go, Khalil. But I'm like as I said, I'm only here for a few minutes, so I'm not going to get on that.
Well, first I'd like to ask JG what you mean by the statement you just made. You said that it's not logical; it's philosophical.
Whether God exists or not is a question of philosophy. It's not a question of logistics. I mean, we can use logic and reason within trying to understand on our journey to figure out whether God exists or not, to ask questions, but ultimately it's not going to be decided or undecided by science. It's going to be philosophy that you
okay. I totally agree that it's philosophy that really gets you there, because we can't put God in a test tube. Like this,
according to the Christian worldview,
even logic and reason.
According to the Christian worldview, it's going to be tested at the end. Like, there's going to be doubt right up until Jesus comes back, and then Jesus is going to come back, right? That's going to be your proof. I mean, that's a Christian worldview. It doesn't take.
I mean, there's still going to be some who doubt even after Jesus comes.
Yeah.
There will be a few that do not bow, bend the knee.
Yeah, you're going to have what your saints, and then whatever they call the other guys.
You're going to need to have faith in all religions. And that's going to seem, or it's going to be competitive with logic.
That's not in the Christian world.
Jay, that's a super cringy word for the atheist. What do you mean by faith?
Well, it's going to be trying to understand and believe in things that you can't fully know or can't fully explain through logic.
But you can use a rational basis to explain them, correct?
Yeah, you can attempt.
Because as a fresh Muslim, recent atheist, when people say the word faith, the word gullibility pops up right away.
The thing is that faith is dogma, right? And we all have dogma in our daily life, even if it's dogma within logic. Like, I would say that you have faith in logic and you don't know where its true origin is or why it works or even how it works. You just know that it works and you can demonstrate it.
If you mean by faith that I have things that are beliefs that are axiomatic, I would absolutely agree with you.
Well, that's fine. That'll work.
Yeah, but I think most Christians, when they say faith, means something completely different than what you laid out. And I didn't come to non-faith by utilizing what you would consider logic, or I came to non-religion based on what happened in my life. Like I said, I was a Christian. I did horrible things, and God was never there for me like He seems to be for the rest of the Christians. I'd never heard His voice. It never happened. I looked in other stuff. I looked in Buddhism, Taoism. It just never happened. I came to non-belief because I don't believe the holy text. That's why I came to non-belief.
What I'm getting at is you're not in non-belief. You're just in a different set of faith. Like you sort of move.
You're trying to push my buttons now, and I'm not trying to be mad tonight.
Well, I don't need to use the word. I don't need to use the word faith, but what I'm saying is like you've redirected your beliefs and saturated them into another area, which are still not fully definable. Like you still have faith. You might have more faith.
Walaikum assalam, Ramani.
I
have faith.
my car won't crash.
If I don't define something, I don't use it. it's not useful if I can't define it. And if everybody's arguing about what this and that means, what good is it? Use something else that is more better. What is better than faith? Putting trust, building confidence for something.
Can I press on that a little bit? If you say, you said it's no use believing in it if you cannot define it. How do you define reality?
No, that's not what I said.
Okay, what'd you say? Sorry, I must have misheard you.
The concept is not useful if I cannot define it.
The concept of what? Faith?
Any concept is not useful if you cannot define it. It was something Jay Gee said, and I don't know.
Just ask for a clarification, Tobin.
Right on.
Just ask for the clarification. Go ahead. What is it?
It's so. Go ahead, Tobin.
I mean that is basically was my full thought.
I was just pushing back a little bit because you just said, and correct me if I'm wrong. Let me steel man your position. You said any concept that is not definable is completely useless. Is that what you said? Yeah. Okay. Could you define reality for me?
That statement's problematic because there's a lot of holes to say if you can't define it, there's no point. There's a lot of holes.
They've been trying to define reality for thousands of years now.
Yeah, but can we not look it up? What can I not?
Something I learned reading this damn book.
Everybody in this conversation is presupposing logic. It takes a degree of faith in order to use that. That's my point overall. It's like it starts somewhere.
I know logic is useful. It's useful. It's a tool you can put it to use because it is defined, and it is because it is defined.
No,
it is based on reality, and reality is the shared experience of everybody and all of matter.
Well, where is this magical logic that you speak of? What material is it?
It's not magic. It is a
Jay, you're using a lot of triggery words.
The shared experience has a lot of holes in that. Has a lot of holes in that too, because let's say we all drop a hit of acid, right? We're all going to be tripping, but we're
I just became a Muslim. Like I used to do that, and that's a lot of fun.
Same. But we're all tripping, but we're all in different trips, so we're not sharing the same experience. So that's not exactly a good definition of reality, because we're in different realities.
And I don't want this to go off. I don't want this to go off on a huge tangent. I was just trying to bring up a point to where. Tobin, what I was trying to get at was that we may not be able to define everything that we observe or everything that we experience, but that doesn't make it completely useless. There's some things, and I think JG, I may be wrong, but when you use the word faith, to me it seems like you're using trust and confidence. If you were to say instead of faith, trust and confidence, I think that you would get a much better reaction at a rage.
Sometimes I don't know is the correct answer. Well, there's nothing wrong with I don't know.
Jay's trying to take it into philosophical realms because he understands I don't like to go there. My definition of reality has always been this, and I didn't need philosophy to get there.
This whole
I think
conversation
reality is individual. I think that there are almost 9 billion separate universes on this planet, each one a little bit different than the other one, and we all collide. Our universes all collide with the other universes every single fucking day, and it creates calamity. And we live on a world of calamity. That's my interpretation of reality.
That's your philosophy.
We're all on different acid trips.
Yeah.
I don't even know how to respond to that.
Look, it's just true that since my brain is not your brain, your perception of reality is not my perception of reality. And there's nothing we can do about it aside from talk about how we justify things.
Yeah.
Well, that's
Yeah,
how
it's like
we.
it's
That's
like
why
a
we
person
need
that's
some of
an
the-
colorblind,
objective
right?
reality,
Like,
right?
why
We all
ask
have
a person that's colorblind
perceptions.
what blue looks like? It's just it's not a question for that person, right? And that's kind of like I think when people browbeat philosophy to people that don't really quite understand it, and this is something that I'm learning as I'm reading, what you're doing is actually turning people off from it and not giving it a chance because they just see the shittiness, and that's kind of what I'm getting.
You just said that you just gave us your whole life philosophy. Just before that, you said you're studying it, you're not really into it, and then you went on to give us like your philosophy on all of
Yeah, but
life.
I've had that's been my thing for years. I've felt like that for way before I even started
Right.
YouTube. That's just like
Rage,
common
this has been Justin's argument since the beginning of the conversation during my last stream, my last open room, is that we're all natural philosophers. We just don't necessarily think of
Yeah,
it that
well,
way.
and I agree with that.
Right.
You know, like when I say I don't understand philosophy, I don't understand the academia of philosophy, right? But of course, I utilize it. I'm human. Right?
Yeah. Now,
Well,
now
it's a
it's
concept.
it
It's
becomes
useful.
problematic when someone says that you must use philosophical philosophical jargon and high structured argumentation, because I mean I could create a syllogism for you that the sun is going to come up tomorrow. But if that's the only way to justify a belief, then most of the world who doesn't put their belief, or as Jay would say, faith that the sun's going to come up tomorrow into a syllogism, then I could never say that those people are justified in their belief that the sun's going to rise tomorrow. So I think there's different ways of going about it, and yes, you can get way too nuanced into it and really and break things down into arbitrary terms and really like play word salad games
Yeah.
with philosophy. But I feel like a lot of the times that people are actually really doing philosophy in the correct manner, and some other people that don't understand or are not interested will claim it to be getting into those arbitrary, conversations.
Yeah, I've mentioned before, I've had several people try to get me into philosophy. And one of the things that they've always said to me is, man, you have a natural understanding for it. You'll get it. And I'm like, yeah, but I don't care. Because I want to read, I want to read the Bible. And that's what I've done for the last few years. But I will say,
Or just
Simon
ignore
Funk
your
was
gifts from God. That's great.
yeah, right. Simon Funk told me, hey, because I was telling him I love history and I can read history for hours. He's like, just start with the history of philosophy. You're going to have a field day. And he wasn't wrong. I mean, I've thoroughly enjoyed it.
Now, Tobin, I think you were trying to say something earlier. You had your hands on your head and you were like freaking out about something.
Yeah, Marty said something, and I have to say, I was actually typing it in the chat to tell her. I was like, some of the most previous moments though, that were just like mind blowing, like visually like spectacular, was some that it was a shared experience, like because it was like realized that, oh, you're seeing that too. Oh my goodness, it's like coming down at us. Oh my god, and you kind of
Yeah,
like put that together, and it's like it adds to the trip.
There's several.
I've been there before too, but at the end of the
Yeah.
day, while you might have that shared experience, you're still on different realities. You're still in different wavelengths. So you might have that quick connection, but having the connection doesn't mean you're in the same reality.
There are several Native American ceremonies that are designed to get you in that same reality, Marty. I participated in a lot of them. We use different things, sometimes mushrooms, sometimes peyote, sometimes just weed and a peace pipe. Sometimes I'm not sure what they put in that peace pipe. But there was ceremonies that were designed to get you all to the same place, right? And in their religion and their custom, it was trying to talk to an ancestor. And you got there, and everybody got there. Everybody shared the same experience. And it's to what Tobin's saying, that they're actually looking into the psychic connection that people have on DMT. Is something I've never tried, but I've heard a lot about it. I don't advocate for doing narcotics at all. Like I'm a weed smoker. That's what I do. But that's what I recommend. But like, these things have existed for a very, very long time, and now science is actually starting to look at it, and we are starting to see some weird things out there.
Yeah, they've been working on that stuff for a good minute.
Science, man.
Quick word to Ox.
I think as an atheist, I would agree that human beings are energy, right? That's what we are. We're body
Okay,
shells.
before you get into that, quick word to Ox. Ox, what makes you think that I would be able to read this?
Just more word rope.
Just think about that for a minute.
I do think, and this is something that I really, because the history I'm reading doesn't really delve into it. And I want to talk to some of my scholar friends because I actually have a couple. But I do remember, I believe it was Christianity. It could have been Judaism, but I think it was Christianity that burned the old schools of philosophy. And they settled on Plato basically because Plato was very theocratic, right? Like he talked I don't know. So that's something that I didn't really get from this because I'm reading Bertrand Russell's The History of Western Philosophy. I didn't get that. It kind of mentioned it. So I want to talk to some of my scholarship friends and be like, what went on there? Yeah. What did we lose? You know, does anybody know what we lost when all those schools were burned?
We lost the information on how to fly back to the moon.
Who knows, man?
Okay, the conversation's dying, so I'm going to make an assertion.
Nice.
Paganism is a true religion. Islam is a true religion. Christianity is a true religion. And that's why there is so much overlap in all of these stories, because God has been trying to tell us the truth forever.
Well,
they can't all be right.
What's a true? Sure. So when you say true religion, you mean a religion all speaking to the same thing?
I think the overview of all of them, never mind what any particular practitioner says and all the minutiae they get into, and much of it's just dogmatic. It's not even within the stories. That the overview of these stories is always the same. There's a beginning story, a Genesis, right? And that Genesis turns into a lot of detail within the story. And then there's a summation at the end where we are completely changed in like really, really positive ways. And I believe that's true. And it's also very, very universal.
Well, I think it's universal because, you know, the oldest religions utilized it. Egypt did. Judaism took a lot from Egypt. I think human beings have always tried to understand why we're here and have utilized whatever data to the best of their abilities to do so in whatever era they were in. We have a lot more information now. So I think that now you should utilize the information at hand to come to a conclusion.
What information is that?
You know, like evolution exists. It's real. It happened. We have fossilized records. We actually have more evidence of it than the Genesis story.
So it's a matter of the multitude of evidence that's available.
Well, I mean, if any evidence would be nice for the Genesis story. I mean, we know that this Earth was not 6,000 years old. It's just not.
How far into Darwin have you studied? Like,
what do you mean? Have I ever
Darwin's actual
like? Have I ever said I studied Darwin? Like, what are you talking about?
Evolution.
All right, so evolution is just a thing. We have the fossil record. We know there's evidence. Like I can Google it right now.
Yeah. There are trees on this earth older than 6,000
I'm saying like the creator of the theory of evolution, Charles Darwin.
Yeah, I know who Charles Darwin is.
Oh, yeah. How much have you studied into him, his personal background, and so forth?
He's not a racist, because that's what you were getting at. Because because the Christians like to like the Kent Hovins and the Matt Powells like to say, well, the rest of this is favored racist, blah blah blah.
So you don't think evolution is real?
He doesn't mean like
it's not about evolution being. I'm saying it's not real. It's definitely has a process. As a process, there's realities of evolution. I mean, of course, it's not an origin, but I was just asking if you'd looked into Charles Darwin the man at all. It just sounds like you haven't. That's fine.
Well, I mean, I'm an atheist that's been on YouTube for 4 years that has had 3 conversations with Matt Powell. I think I've looked into Charles Darwin.
Is that?
I've debated Standing for Truth. I've debated John Maddox. I mean, I could list them for you.
You can list people you debated instead of talking about Charles Darwin's personal life.
Just people. I think I know a little bit about Charles Darwin. So, are you trying to get into the racism? What are you trying to get into?
Well, why don't you tell me what you know about him? I'm kind of perplexed.
I know that he studied evolution his entire life. I know that he didn't create evolution. He wasn't the first person to study evolution. Evolution was around for a long time. He did a life's work that just happened to prove evolution. I know that Christians try to say that he was a racist. He lived in a very racist time. By those standards, he actually wasn't. I know. What do you want to know about my knowledge of Charles Darwin? Did I go to college and study Charles Darwin? No. I
love you, brother. Rage. Let's not assume what the other person is driving at until they've identified what that is, because that's a logical fallacy. Okay, so I mean, you can decline the questions. You're free to do that.
Wait, can I ask a question of Jay?
Sure.
Jay, what turns on the personal life, as you suggested, what turns on the personal life of Charles Darwin? Nothing is going to follow from whatever personal facts about Charles Darwin in terms of the creationism debate, right?
How can you make a broad claim like that?
Well, because it's just going to be some kind of ad hominem if anything follows from the personal life of Charles Darwin. Right. That's to say, if X fact about Charles Darwin is personal, therefore Y is false. That's just a straight up ad hominem.
It could look like an attempt at poisoning the well.
Sure, it could, but there's other ways to look at that too. Like Charles Darwin could have had affiliations.
Well, okay, let's just grant. I just want to, for sake of argument, I'm going to grant all of. Let's just pretend, or
I'm gonna bust out of here. I'm getting a little aggravated, and I told myself I'm not getting mad tonight. Y'all have a good night.
Hey, it wasn't
have a good night. Thanks for stopping by.
It's the homophobe over there. So y'all have a good night.
Bye now. See you later.
Look, we can grant that Charles Darwin was a racist. Look, we can just grant everything that you think about Charles Darwin. We can grant that he's racist. We can grant all of that. Therefore, what?
Well, I mean, we didn't even really get there. I was just trying to see if the Raging Atheist had any background study on him.
Do you have any background in calculus? That's just as relevant.
Actually, Danny, that's not just as relevant, and I'm going to push back on you just a little. Okay, I'm going to push back on you just a little bit. I'd appreciate if you hear why I would push back. Do you think it's fair to assert that Christian Science is tainted by Christianity and their religious beliefs?
I have to understand your question. You mean like creationism? Because there's Christian Science in the non-Christian sense, right? And I know that I don't know what y'all certainly heard of Christian Science. I don't know. You mean like creationism, right?
No, I don't.
Okay.
I mean,
what do you mean?
I mean Christians and their view, their observations within science could be tainted by their Christianity.
That's sure. That's possible. Yeah. If not,
okay. So your personal beliefs do color how you look at things,
right? But what I'm saying is that the facts of your personal life are not going to justify any claim that a particular view is false.
No, it's not going to justify that the claim is false. Go ahead, Justin.
I was trying to speak for you, Richie. Go ahead.
Okay, so what I'm saying is that a person's belief systems, their presuppositions, can color how they see reality and affect their assessment of things.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm not going to dispute that. Okay, but
then why are we disputing whether or not it's a genetic fallacy if Charles Darwin, like any other human, had presuppositions?
What I'm asking is, what's the relevance in the personal life of Charles Darwin in the creation?
It might be very relevant that his grandpa and his dad were staunch about evolution, and that he was actually becoming a preacher when he was sent out on that 5-year mission.
I think what
we're talking past each other, right? I'm interested in a justification for why a particular view is true or false, right? Is that not the topic of the debate? That is it not about creationism, whether we should accept creationism or not?
Okay, let's do that. That sounds good. So we're not going to talk about why JG asked it, but we're going to get back to the original topic. Good.
Okay. If I came here late, but if the original topic was, is creationism a plausible view? Are there justifications for creationism? The personal life of Charles Darwin is irrelevant to that subject.
Correct.
Is it?
Is it relevant to the efficacy and the validity of
evolution?
Of evolution. It's not a leap of faith. It's not a leap of faith.
Right. He could be a scumbag. It wouldn't mean therefore evolution is
exactly.
Is
yeah.
You're missing something in the general sense. Like, it's not a matter of like whether he's a scumbag or not. We're talking about not even that we need to go down this road anymore. It's just trying to get something out of the raging atheist. But like, whatever the scientist is bringing to the table, like the scientist does the experiments, like he's a part of it. It's inescapable. He brings presuppositions.
Look, no one's going to contest that your material world influences the way you think. But if the subject, okay,
wait.
Your material conditions, material conditions means like your environment.
Can I please chime in just for one moment?
Of course, yeah. Go ahead, Tobin. Yeah, you haven't.
I go ahead and I need to go and take care of some responsibilities, but I did enjoy the conversation. If y'all would like to continue more conversations, I'm easy to get a hold of. I answer my emails and stuff like that. You know, I keep a calendar. Talk to me. I like conversation.
Later, bro.
Y'all have a good night. Thank you, Richard, for inviting me. Thank you.
Thank you, Tobin. Appreciate you, man.
Anyways, Jay, there's a phrase in philosophy called material conditions, right? Material conditions refer to your environment, which might form your biases, which might influence the way you think. Everyone has environments, and of course it influences the way that you think and the sorts of interests that you have, right? But if the topic is, are there justifications for accepting creationism, or are they justifications for rejecting creationism, right? Pointing out personal life or material conditions do not come into play as to answer that question.
Yeah, I guess I would agree with you on the specific question of the relevance of like the discovery, the science involved. We could isolate it without any characteristics of the person involved, but then I'm getting stuck on thinking how when we're doing.
Do you know
science,
Ravi Zacharias?
Yeah, just passed away recently.
Yeah, I'm not a Christian, far from it. Okay, but one thing that really annoys me that in the Christian community is that Ravi Zacharias did some shitty things.
Tell.
Yeah, one of the things that I'm annoyed by is that Ravi Zacharias did some shitty things. Okay, but it doesn't mean therefore what he said is false.
Ravi.
Right. It doesn't mean therefore what he's saying and what he preaches and his apologetic is therefore false. I'm just saying extend the same courtesy to people like Darwin. If it's the case, and I'm granting that Darwin was a shitty person. I don't actually believe that. But I'm just pointing out that it's just not relevant. A person's personal life and the material conditions don't matter in terms of whether their view is justified or not.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. That's a fair point, because I thought the same thing about Robbie. It crossed my mind. But I guess what I was getting at, and I don't necessarily want to get into because it's a long conversation, is that you can also have a motive into getting into something that is corrupt to the alleged objective nature of what you're supposed to be doing. That can be a possibility. Not that
this is going to be very unintuitive, but I'm going to stand by it. It could have, in a world in which Darwin was trying to deceive everyone. Okay.
No, don't simplify it though. It just makes it sound stupid, right?
No, I know that no one believes this, including yourself. Okay, this is a thought experiment. This is a thought experiment. if Darwin was trying to deceive the populace, right, it still would not follow that therefore Darwin's theories and evolution by natural selection is false. It still
right,
wouldn't
but
follow.
certain elements that go into the total picture can be manipulated.
Well, look, if you agree with what I said, I don't see our disagreement.
Well, why don't you just consider what I just said? In the total
Because I
picture,
didn't really understand it. Or do you agree
Because
with me or not?
because it doesn't make sense.
Well,
right,
I mean,
that's a little much.
I
Right?
said
Like,
it in the way
I'm
I
saying,
said
like,
it. I just didn't understand you, Jay. That's fine if I don't. Sometimes I don't understand people. I'm just saying, do you agree with me or disagree with me? That way I can
Well,
actually.
no, I'm saying I'm not going to just answer in the affirmative, right? I'm going to say you can have an overall picture with truth in it, and then you can have deceptions all weaved throughout it. That's how you make a great deception. You have to have truth within it. It has to be a part of it, but then you can weave deceptions through it. So
look, if I'm interpreting you charitably, look, people can intend to lie and then accidentally tell the truth. Okay. Well, in fact, there are moral dilemmas in which doctors have tried to poison someone and accidentally gave them the medication that saved their life. Right. That's how so just, it's the same kind of,
I'm not familiar with a life-saving medication. I mean, personally,
really,
chemotherapy is, I mean, maybe it kills good and bad
you
cells.
there are
Antibiotics.
there are lots of medications that save your life in certain contexts. Like, for instance,
Can you
there's
give me
certain
an example of one?
I don't know the names, but there's a medication that if you have a particular stroke, that has if you take a particular kind of medication, it has like a 50% chance of saving your life. Right.
But anyway, getting back to it, like you're saying, like the truth of a man's work has nothing to do with his background and so forth, right? Like,
yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm glad
what
you
I'm
agree.
saying to you is, like, when you have a complicated theory that has scientific proofs and theories within it, and you have a person involved or other people involved, like, there can be deceptions weaved into truths in an overall picture.
I don't know how to interpret you, but by way of the example that I gave, people can intend to deceive or have malicious intention in academia or in a moral situation, but actually come to a truth or actually do something good, right?
It doesn't even have to be malicious. It could be mistakes that can be made as well. There's all sorts of ways that the truth can that it can get misfigured. It doesn't have to be malintent, right? It can be accident.
Look, I'm just not seeing the disagreement. I don't know if we're disagreeing or not anymore.
No, we're just talking. It's all good.
I don't see this as like a huge issue either. Like, I don't really have a dog in this fight. Like, I'm not bound to be a young Earth creationist or anything like that. So, I mean, the evolution itself, if we're defining it as genome frequency changes over time, that's proven. That's factual. That's scientifically shown to be proven. Jay, if you're mentioning more towards the theory of evolution by means of natural selection and the impact that theory had based on Darwin's personal life and how there could be certain things about his personal life that added to the deception of the theory of evolution. I mean, that's something to talk about, but I'm confused on if you guys are talking about evolution or like the theory of evolution by natural selection.
Well, I think natural selection is bonkers, but
what I'm picking up,
evolution.
I think I've calmed down. If I get aggravated, I'll just leave again. But what I'm picking up is the great lie. I heard the great lie and deception. Is Darwinism even applicable to modern evolutionary theory? I mean, why are we even talking about Darwin if we're talking about what we know about evolution today? You wanted to do that. You see, you wanted to think that I'm ignorant about a subject but I'm not. I've actually dealt with this subject. Now, I'm no scientist. There's plenty of scientists that can actually get into the minutia with you. But like evolution is a no-brainer. We actually have evidence for it. It's not a leap of faith. We have actual evidence. We have beads that they dropped generationally as they migrated out of Africa. We can see these beads. We can date these beads using radiometric dating. Do you deny radiometric dating? Because that puts a lie to the Genesis story. I mean, that puts a lie to the creation story, amongst other things. We can talk about the topography of the earth and how geology disproved that a global flood shaped the topography of the earth 250 years ago. We could talk about that. I mean, Darwinism has nothing to do with modern evolutionary theory.
Yeah.
All right. Richard, it's dying again. We need another assertion.
Natural selection is false, though. We can talk about
What'd you say,
that.
Danny?
I think natural selection is a worthless theory, though. I don't think it explains anything.
I know that purposeful selection actually lessens the amount of options within a genome. I know that for certain. For instance, you can get a husky from a wolf, but you can't get back to wolf from huskies. No matter how many huskies you have, it's just not going to happen. So it's evidently true that natural selection eliminates options. It doesn't create new options.
So it's a loss of information as time goes by.
Right. So you don't end up with a more complex critter through natural or intelligent interference. It's not going to happen.
What do you accept? Are you
I accept what the Bible describes, that evolution happened a long, long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. And it did go through all the steps that we see that are sampled in the fossil record. And what we have here is a sampling, which is why Stephen Jay Gould and others have postulated punctuated equilibrium, that there is not a gradual gradation of small change over time. We have no evidence to that. That's a huge assumption that we just can't make. But what we do have is stabilization in many fossils, and then we have a jumps in gradation in the fossils. That's what we actually see. Oh, and we see it in deleterious mutation buildup before a big change too. So it's in the genetic record, it's in the fossil record.
That's interesting. What about you, Khalil? You're just kind of whatever the evidence leads me kind of person?
Well, I mean, when I was an atheist, I believed in evolution, and nothing in the Quran states that I can't believe in evolution. So, I mean, it's not really a salvatory problem for me. It's not really that big of a deal. We're here now, so let's deal with let's deal with how we are nowadays.
Yeah, I feel like it's stressful to defend stuff like young Earth creationism. That takes so much work. I would just like.
Well, I think that the Bible actually leaves open, and this is just my interpretation of it. I could be wrong. The Bible leaves open the ability for some aspects, not all, but some aspects of evolution. Like, for example, God in the Bible, God created Adam. All right, it says that he created Adam and placed him in the garden. When it talks about like the animals and the birds, and it says, "Let the earth bring forth, let the waters bring forth." Well, you could extrapolate letting the earth or the waters bring forth as a series of genome frequency changes over time, and evolution just going through its process. Now, there's other parts of it that are problematic, but there's
it's going to be more consistent as terraforming than it is a naturalistic process.
There's a real simple answer for old Earth creationists, and it's a simple leap of logic that to me is like common sense, right? If you're looking at the Genesis story literally, you're going to fail. you're just going to fail. And that 25% of Christians actually look at it literally. And in fact, there's data that show a good chunk of America, a much bigger chunk of America, actually believes the creation story over evolution just because it's what their grandma told them. It's hard to put this the way I want to put it.
Philosophy,
I don't know,
bro.
I totally lost my thought. Go ahead. Sorry.
I mean, I think that the thing about biblical interpretation is that if you're trying to get at God's intentions, I don't think there can be a good interpretation of, like, I don't think there could be a justification.
God's time wouldn't be our time, right? That's the easy thing.
I think but I want to get at the root of the problem. The root of the problem is this, that there can't, if you're trying to get to God's intentions, there can't be a justification for taking one interpretation over another. I think that's my view. So I don't really,
True that.
Because
I don't think God had anything to do with evolution. I think that you have to put God there as you do with everything else. Just because you believe in the Christian worldview doesn't mean you have to deny just what the data tells you. If it tells you it, then believe it. Don't go out of your way not to, and don't focus on Darwin because he's an easy person to focus on. I get criticized for focusing on the Israelites and all the atrocities that they committed because it was a different time, a different culture, and it really was pretty normal back then, right? So, it's, I don't know, evolutionary theory is a thing that is still, like, we are learning every day. Like the smartest people on this planet are devoted to learning this thing. You don't have to deny the science. You can still have the God there. It's just, it is science, and there is a lot of evidence as opposed to the creation theory and there's just isn't. It's pretty much a no-brainer.
I rarely debate evolution and creationism. I'm more interested in the philosophy stuff.
I was forced into it. Matt Powell started trolling me. I didn't even know he was like I didn't know anything. So I was forced into the evolution thing.
Yeah, but I don't think you need to be. I think you can approach it all philosophically. Like I think there are arguments to show why any form of creationism has to be false, whether you're old Earth, young Earth, whatever. Or at least it's not justified, right? What was that?
You're telling Rage to approach this philosophically.
Yeah. My approach was I listen to what Standing for Truth says, and then I go and I find the science, and he's wrong about that.
That's so much work. Why not just get to the root of the problem?
Well, I'm doing that now, Danny. I'm old and stubborn, and Khalil taught me a life lesson. So,
what was the life lesson?
He caught me with philosophy, yo, and I got mad. I got really mad. I'm still a little angry.
What was it? What are you angry about specifically? What has Khalil said that you can't get your head around?
No, I'm not. He came into a night and utilized his argumentation well, and I put my foot in my mouth several times. I think I uttered the words "fuck philosophy" and "what has philosophy done for the ghetto?" So yeah.
Do you know? I think it was Jeremy Bentham, or either Mill. I forgot which one, but they're both consequentialist. Are you familiar with their lives, like their histories, their personal lives?
No, I haven't got there yet. Right now, I am still. I am into Plato now. That's what I'm looking at right now.
You're going way back, yeah. But
he's reading the history of philosophy. That's what he's focusing on right now, is the history of philosophy.
Well, you should look into Mill's personal background, because Mill was motivated by his moral philosophy to do a lot of egalitarian things in society. He was extremely charitable. I'm not prepared to give you all the details, but I think you'd be very interested in some of these political theorists, right? Political philosophers like Mill and Rawls and all of them. They're just very motivated to do good things in society, and they cite their philosophical beliefs. as motivations.
I've always been motivated to do good things, and I actually have in my life done a lot of really good things that I don't think most people actually do. I've been an activist for I don't know 20 years when it comes to universalizing marijuana legalization, universalizing healthcare. But outside of that, ever since Eric Gardner, I've been a BLM activist. I've stood face to face to Nazis. I went to Standing Rock and participated in that protest. And I've been I was an active member of my Democratic Party here in the state, a very active member. They wanted me, despite my past, to actually start running for office and shit. And I hate my Democratic Party here in Michigan. So I left the party about 3 years ago. They're all corporate sellouts and really trying to corporatize Michigan, and we are not on the same wavelengths as to our activism. But I've always been an activist. I've always done I've done a lot of community work. It's just something that I've always done because of the past that I had. And it became something, a part of my rehabilitation, and then it's something that I've continued ever since as to kind of keep me grounded and be politically motivated and focused to do good things on this planet. And I think I've raised a pretty good daughter in that atmosphere. She knows a lot of really good people here in this state. So
I got an off-topic question for Danny. You said that you were an atheist. What are your views or feelings on like epiphenomenalism?
Oh, I think it's an untenable position. So the idea of epiphenomenalism, for those that don't know, is that your mental states are effects, but they're not causes. Okay. So the idea is that when you form the desire to eat spaghetti, that can be explained, but that can't explain any behavior.
Now, hold on. Wait, did you say that you think that it's they're effects that are not caused? They're mental states that are not caused?
So I take the epiphenomenalist position to be that mental states, like intentional states, for instance, okay, so that's beliefs and desires, are caused, but they don't cause anything.
Okay, so okay. So I thought you said that those mental states themselves were not caused, and I thought my idea of epiphenomenalism was mental states that are caused by physical events, but have no effect on the physical world itself.
I think I worded it like they are the effects of things, but they're not the causes of other things. So there's a lot of ways to say it. I'm sorry if I was too wordy. But no, I think what that does is completely destroy. Now, there are a couple people that defend it. First of all, I think Nietzsche was a kind of epiphenomenalist. Brian Leiter, who was at the University of Texas, was defending a form of epiphenomenalism. He cited psychological studies, like psychology studies. And I think a good if you want to get at their intuitions or at least their pictures like this, right? Think of yourself think of a 2-year-old, and you're playing your game, your video game, right? And they're bothering you, and they're like, "Hey, I want to," they want attention. So what you do is you give them a controller, right? A controller that's not connected to the game. Okay, and so they take the controller, and then suddenly all these behaviors ensue, right? Their fingers start pressing stuff, and all sorts of things happen on the screen. And what do they think? Right? They think that
they're causing that.
They're causing that, but what in reality they're not, right? It's something else, right? So this is where the epiphenomenalist is coming from, right? But they apply it to every intentional state, right? Where like all of your beliefs and desires, it just seems like you're causing your behaviors, but there's some other explanation. And I think that just destroys number one, freedom of will, which I think we have, and the common parlance, right? Like we cite, like presumably you cite reasons for why you're a Muslim, right? If you're an epiphenomenalist, it wouldn't be true that your reasons motivate you to believe things.
Exactly, yeah.
And so it's not a tenable position. It's like one step better than physicalism, because I think you can be an epiphenomenalist and be a dualist of a sort, right? I think physicalism just eliminates the will. Whether I know they would, a lot of them wouldn't say that, right? The ones that would say that, they're called eliminativist, or the position's eliminative materialism. But I think any form of physicalism will just force you into a eliminativist position.
Yeah. When I was an atheist, it literally forced me into a moral nihilistic state. And also, I was on hard determinism for a really long time until quantum issues were I was subjected to quantum issues like quantum indeterminacy, and then I leaned more hard incompatibilist, leaning towards determinism, but that would still negate free will and moral responsibility.
See, all of this is like alien speak. Why not just just
why don't you ask
be
questions?
who you are,
It actually
man?
sounds really
like,
good. It actually sounds really good, Rage.
Yeah, Rage. Just ask questions if you don't understand anything, right?
well, no, I get what you guys are saying. I don't think I'm a nihilist just because I'm an atheist, but that was probably just you.
So for me, nihilism is saying that there's no objective meaning or purpose in life. I think you would agree that you create your own purpose when you have your kids as an atheist. You don't have some God up there writing a manual on how you should live your life, that you create your own meaning and purpose. That's what I mean by nihilism. Okay. So I was a moral nihilist, so I did not believe in an objective meaning or purpose, like I was placed here for a certain purpose. I created my own subjective meaning, purpose, and morals.
Yeah, I don't know. I maybe because I was just never into philosophy. I just, I think we can have some grand purpose. Like I started writing stories when I was like 6 years old. I always thought I was going to be this famous writer, and I still write stories to this day. I still think my purpose in this life is to write stories. It's just something that I've always done. It's just natural to me, and I don't know. I think we have just overall purpose, and whether there's some design to it or not, who knows what who knows what the universe be doing when we're not looking.
That's kind of the big question, right? Like, is your purpose just something that you created in your own head on your own accord, or is there a larger picture to your purpose, perhaps even outside?
There's always a larger picture. I always think long.
That would be interesting. Guys, how about you ask Rage questions and help him identify his position by shorthand, by terms?
I don't have that much time. I just wanted to come in and say, hey, I can be chill. I'm not too aggravated. I didn't want to interrupt the flow of the conversation. Like, my ultimate point is, like, I'm a humanist before everything, and it's really the only label I really like to grasp. I've from the very beginning of creating my channel, the only reason I grasped onto the label of atheism is because it's demonized. And if I'm going to speak out about these things, I might as well take that label. But I identify as a humanist, and I see human beings as human beings. We're all kind of fucked up, and I think that like philosophy's fun and all, but like, can't we just be who we are? Can't you just be who you are and not have to really define it and just be a good person?
You know what I'm about to say, but Raging, you know what I'm going to say, right? You're philosophizing right now. You've heard this before. Yeah. Right? I mean, but like the point, but to back you up, Rage, I'm of the view that there are a lot of atheists, professional philosophers including, that think that there is purpose in life and an objective sense. Okay. Now, of course, the theists like up above us, right, are going to say, well, look, we can only really have this like robust account of meaning and purpose if there's like a grand designer. Okay. And then, but I'm just telling you that I'm of the persuasion that atheism doesn't entail one view over another. They're atheists that think that there's no meaning in life, and they're atheists that think that there's a robust sense of objective meaning and purpose in life, right? So you can kind of try to get at the question, and I'm just saying you're not trapped into one. I
would just do thought experiments with those atheists and get it down to show them that at the fundamental level, it's simply their subjective opinion on what their meaning and purpose in life is. Mm-hmm. And if I'm able to break it down to, well, that's just what I think I should be here for, well, then it's not objective in any sense. You're still a moral nihilist at that point, just coming up with your own meaning and purpose, but saying that this meaning and purpose is not only for me, but it's for the rest of humanity. But if it's still just your own opinion, then I mean, you're still in the same spot.
Yeah, and I think the way the dialectic goes is you engage with Khalil, and he gives an argument for why, if there is objective meaning and value and all of that, then there is a God, right? And then he talks about why that's true, and that's a philosophical discussion.
You're not going to catch me having that debate. I don't think that I can prove objective morality to you. I don't think that I can prove objective meaning and purpose to you. I think that honestly, when theists have those discussions, I mean, as fun as it is to watch, I don't think that I can prove any of that to you. So it's for me, it's useless to even talk about. Like, yeah, I have a God that has an objective meaning and purpose, or objective morality. But here's the thing: we're on this planet, and you, as an atheist, when I say that there's an objective morality, you're going to see that as me having an opinion. At the end of the day, no matter how much I talk, no matter how many words come out of my mouth, you're going to see me as having an opinion that there's an objective standard.
Khalil, so have you ever done the thought experiment where you can isolate or get to the point where you know something is not objectively moral, the sort of the reverse engineering of that, where you find something within the human experience, you go, I know that cannot be objectively moral. I know that just cannot exist as something that's allowable or acceptable in any way at any time ever. Have you ever done that thought experiment?
I think I'm understanding what you're saying. That you can.
Yeah, instead of saying like objective morals exist, you take the reverse of that and you find something in your experience that you know cannot be moral in any sense at any time in any way. If you can find something.
So you mean bring up a position that would always be wrong in every case.
Right. Get to the point where you're convinced that is always wrong and always
that's when I start to say some crazy stuff that viewers don't like.
Well, I want to hear it.
Let me
say it first. I think I know what you're about to say, and I think it's compatible with theism. Okay, I am what you call a moral particularist. Okay, I reject principles. Okay, that kind of goes with Jay, right? Jay was saying, could you discover something that's wrong in all cases at all times?
Well, hold on. You reject all principles?
Yeah,
you're making a claim about a principle?
Yeah, that's generalism. I'm not a moral. So I think moral truths depend on context. I don't think moral truths depend on principles.
Yeah, I think that Jay would agree that things are right and wrong objectively as long as you separate them into certain situations.
Right, yeah. So you can be a moral realist and be a particularist. Okay? Kant was a moral realist, he was a generalist. What?
Khalil, could you give me an example of what you just said? Separation?
Yeah. So justified killing, right? Certain situations you could justify that killing based on your framework. In other situations, killing itself would not be justified.
Right, that's a particularist view. Well,
yeah, we know that. We would just be talking about murder versus self-defense.
But murder is defined as wrong, though. That's the problem with that word.
Well, killing for no reason, we could say, right? Versus killing for self-defense.
But yeah, so that would be two different situations: killing for no reason, and then killing for a reason. If killing, thou shalt not kill or thou shalt not murder, is objectively wrong, but can be justified in certain situations, that's kind of what I'm talking about.
Well, and where were you going with that?
I was trying to get a hold on Danny's position on as a particularist, how he would react or if he would agree to that type of position.
I absolutely agree. Right. I think if anything, this is going to sound like contradictory, but I hope you understand what I mean. I think moral principles are immoral. Right. I think to treat every situation the same leads to horrible consequences. Right. And I don't mean consequences in a consequentialist sense. Right. I'm just saying there are extreme cases. Right. Like, for instance, is rape wrong? Well, most people are going to say rape is wrong. But the moral philosopher comes in and says, well, what about the extreme case, the hypothetical in which rape would save 1 million people?
Right.
So are you still going to hold a principle there?
That's kind of what I was getting at with the thought experiment, where you keep going, you have to keep going with that, and you go, okay, that I could make sense out of that, but what if I go into like raping a child? The child can never reproduce. Like I can.
Well, here's the thing: if you were to have to rape a child to save your own child's life, that is one that's been brought up to me before.
Right, but I'm saying like you could go in different directions on that experiment, but at some point you should get to some place where you're convinced like that could never be right. That's what I was asking.
But that's a generalist position, right? That presumes
no, not a position. I was wondering if anyone here has ever done that thought experiment, because that's how
there's a super easy one to bring up.
I don't think I could rape a child to save my daughter.
No,
I don't think I could do that. That's weird.
No, dude,
I never thought about
that. But on the other hand, it almost looks like as if you're letting your own child die.
Yeah, that is so weird, because now I'm like, I wouldn't let her die.
That is a real
rage. I need to open you up to Frankfurt cases. I think those things would blow your mind.
The point of the thought experiment was
Frankfurt cases. You're talking about the principle of alternate possibilities there.
Yeah.
Why did you ask questions about epiphenomenalism? What got you interested in that?
I've just been looking. I've been looking into it. Had a few conversations with some people that
they were epiphenomenalists.
That held to epiphenomenalism.
Oh my gosh, who is that?
Just a couple random people. I don't think you would know. They're just in. Okay. Yeah, I do Facebook chat groups every day, and I'm still waiting for Rage to join. But he's studying up. I'm giving him some time. Studying up on the Kalam.
That's totally my. I got back to work and they are killing me, and it's killing my legs. I'm heavily medicated, and I don't want to fuck up again. So yeah, I see them usually in the afternoon right before I go to work, because I haven't been on Facebook much. But yeah, like I'm trying to get, once I get used to work and the pain ain't so bad and I'm not so heavily medicated, I'll jump in. I meant to message one of you guys. I think I have James, but I think I got a message request from you. Yeah. I've been getting message requests from like 60 Muslims since that whole video thing, so it's like hard to keep up with them, man.
Yeah. So
go ahead.
Richard comes into those groups. Jay, I would love to see both you and Danny visit our group. So if you guys aren't busy during the day, if you find me on Facebook, we have these exact conversations. We just don't broadcast it to YouTube.
For text or for video?
No, video. Like it's a Facebook. I have a Facebook chat group. It's called Justin's Room. There's one called Peace Chat. There's one, I got multiple different groups, but I can send you guys a link. And I think that my Muslim brothers, who are very philosophically, sound, they would love to talk to both Jay and Danny. Obviously, we're extremely excited to talk to Rage whenever he gets in, but he's already made his peace. Said, hey, let me study up a bit and get used to things. So we're not pushing.
I'll jump in. I do not. I'm not ready to have that kalam. One thing that I took from you that actually pissed me off the most that night was like, don't. If you don't know about these things, don't speak about them. And I have looked at the climb, but I'm like, no, I want to know about these things. So, but I do want to jump in and just have a conversation with you and get to know you a little bit more. Sure. So I will do that. One of these mornings when I'm not so heavily medicated, or because the doctors are telling me I will get used to it. And I will get off the medication because I used to be an addict and I didn't want to take this shit again. Actually, it was on a live stream. I threw my prescriptions in the trash about 2 years ago, so they got me back on this shit. But it will get better. So I'll jump in. At least? Yeah. Huh?
Is it helping at least?
Yeah, I can work to where before I couldn't, and I'm doing all the exercises, and so I mean it's gonna get better. It's just I'm in that shitty period that I gotta just keep on trudging,
Khalil, would you go ahead and put that link to the Facebook audio video chat in the private chat, please?
Yes, most definitely.
That way everybody can
guys,
see it. And
go.
a little. Oh, do you have to?
No, I don't have to, but
He's running. I'm about to get the link, and he's like,
Khalil,
nope.
I do think soon I'm going to actually have surgery on my foot. That's going to give me about a month off of work. So after the recovery period, my plan is to get off of all the medications, and even, my ultimate goal is to quit smoking the weed. And once I do all of that, then but even before that, I want to have a private conversation. I want to jump in and have a conversation just to get to know you a little bit better.
Sure.
Rage, what we could do after maybe you've read, because sometimes it's easier to, like, I'm a person that I have to discuss first and then I read about it. Maybe you're a person that likes to read about it and then discuss, but you should.
I've always been a reader. I usually learn most things by reading.
Yeah, so everyone's different, but I'm just suggesting that you talk to someone, maybe.
Oh yeah, dude, Danny. I definitely want all the help I can get moving forward.
What are you reading on the Kalam specifically? Like, who are you reading?
I haven't read anybody on the Kalam. I just did research through the internet, just looking at the argument.
Oh, okay. Well, how about this?
I've looked at William Lane Craig's argument. I've looked at,
William. But you're going to read the responses, right? You're going to read the responses to all of it.
Well, no, I listened to William. I bore through it. My thing with the Kalam is, to me, it's not a bad argument at all. It's just you infer God there, where I don't really think you have to. The first premise to me is flawed, but talking to Khalil and realizing my ignorance on the subject, I don't want to come to that conclusion until I have a sufficient base of knowledge. So I'm gonna actually kind of just scratch my thoughts on the Kalam. Do this research if it takes me a year, 2 years, 3 years, however long it fucking takes, and then I'm gonna have. And then I'll speak on these matters again. But I'll definitely want all the help I can get along the way. Definitely.
Yeah, I was just going to send you some stuff in response.
I've even thought about doing like a new channel, Rage Learns Philosophy. Yeah. And just kind of record myself reading and like talking about, man, I don't know if I understand any of this shit. Let's read it again. So yeah, I thought about it. But
I think it's very rewarding though.
Real quick, I can't get this link for some reason. It's not working. If you guys are interested, I just put my full name in the private chat.
We're connected on Facebook. Yeah. Huh? I think we're connected on Facebook already, right? Yes, we are. I'm looking.
Yeah, just send me a personal message, Jay, if you'd like to get in on the conversations too. I got you can speak with the Muslims that actually convinced me to take my Shahada. And that's what a lot of people are interested in, is speaking to the guys that made the YouTube atheist not a YouTube atheist.
What made me not a YouTube atheist? I was a Cult of Dusty Alkalite. I loved that guy back in the day, man. I was a closet atheist who was surrounded by a bunch of damn Baptists, and I had to pretend for a long time. And I had Cult of Dusty, and he was like my rage. And so when I first started my channel, it was a lot of Cult of Dusty. Like I learned through researching for debates and then just researching based on conversations I've had with people. I have every note I've ever written on anything I've researched since I started doing YouTube. And anybody that's watched me long enough will tell you, like, yeah, Rage ain't nowhere near like what he started as. So, with me, like, my channel's always been an expression of humanity. I could be right, I could be wrong, but let's just fucking be angry together. That's what my channel's always been about.
Yeah.
Little tangent there, Khalil.
But
on
that note,
kill.
I have to go to bed, guys.
Okay.
Thank you for the good conversation and the pleasant conversation. And
thanks for dropping by, Rage.
And I could be chill. Yeah, have a good night.
See you later.
Little tangent on thou shalt not kill. Thou shalt not, as classically read by the Christian, is a denial of right. Like they would have the ability, God's telling them not to, right? But it could just as easily be read. What's that?
I was going to say, I think you say that you cannot. That's what that means.
Yeah, it could be just as easily could be read as a denial of ability, a declaration of an inability. Thou shalt not can mean you're not able. And if flesh is restored in heaven, thou shalt not kill.
Yeah,
That
have
is,
you
you
ever heard of
can't do it.
deontic? Have you ever heard of deontic modality, Richard?
I was born in the year 2012, and I don't know a lot of terms, but please
No,
tell me
that's
what you're
fine.
talking about.
So, like, there's regular modality, like, let's say logical, a circle can't have sides, okay?
Right.
But that's the standard. Like, there's a contradiction there, so therefore it's impossible, therefore it can't happen. So that's regular modality, and then there's something called deontic modality, stuff like you can't run that red light. Well, logically, even physically, it's possible, right? You can run the red light, but what's being expressed there when you're saying you can't run the red light is that you shouldn't run the red light, or it's against the law, or that, like you're saying, you should it's I don't know, to express it in terms of ability is like you don't have the ability to do that. Seems like you're getting into the regular modal notion of can't, but maybe not, but I just take stuff like you can't kill, if it was interpreted that way, to be a deontic modal notion, like you can't run that red light, but or you can't do that.
That's a very traditional scholarly view, both secular and theologian alike, to read the commandments that way, but it's not a necessity of the commandments that they be read that way. And some places in the text, thou shalt not, doesn't work unless it's a declaration of inability.
Interesting. So I guess a better example then would be chess. You can't move your pawn 3 spaces and forward, right? You don't have that ability, right? But obviously you can take the pawn and put it 3 spaces, physically speaking, right?
Sure.
But you can't do that. You don't have that ability if you're playing chess. If you're playing
according
the
to
game,
the rules of the game, just like
Right.
the rules of the laws of physics, the laws of logic. If you are recreated completely in heaven, then you are not able to actually kill.
Yeah, you can't take a life because God restores it. You literally can't do it.
I didn't think that you could take. I see that interpretation. That's interesting.
I mean, you can waste some vegetables. You can do that. You can waste some meat.
If I were, if I were a Christian, I probably would interpret it normatively. So I would interpret it in terms of should or should not, even though it's read as can't. But
sure, but that doesn't work universally throughout the story. That's the problem that I have with that interpretation.
Maybe you know more about that than I do.
Danny, I got a question for you.
Yeah.
Do you think that you and we ought to use logic?
I think so. I think those norms are mind dependent, right? So I don't. So it's tricky. Ought I be rational, right? Well, I think there are cases in which I actually ought not be rational. There are cases in which you have a reason to be irrational, but I take those reasons to be something called practical reason. So, for instance, let's say you're dying on your bed and there's like no hope for you, and you're anxious, and then okay, yeah, you might believe that everything's going to be okay, right? It's not rational, right? You're gonna die. You're going, but people would say, well, I have a practical reason to think that everything's going to be okay. It's going to calm me down before death, right? And so, ought you be logical in that case? Ought you just think epistemically in terms of knowledge, right? Mm-hmm. Well, I think in those cases, no. I think that
if you're a materialist and some guy comes in your house and takes a shotgun and blows your spouse's head off, ought you be logical in that time? Should you be like, well, he couldn't have done otherwise? So I mean, no, you're gonna act out of emotion, and you're gonna leave logic and rationality and all that stuff behind.
But does that actually change the ought, right? Does the situation change the ought? Who decides I think so. What situation changes it?
My view is yes. I don't think that what you're talking about is what you're talking about. That ought is called an epistemic ought. I don't think those are what we call categorical. Okay, I don't think they apply in all cases. So I think moral oughts and epistemic oughts are both context dependent. So I'm still a particularist with respect to when an epistemic applies. Sometimes you have more reason to be irrational.
Who decides when those reasons
Well,
are
I just
applicable.
I take reasons to be internal, not external. So that would be
it's subjective.
right. I think that those oughts, those obligations are made sense of in terms of your reasons.
So you decide when you ought to be logical depending on the reasons in your life.
Yeah, unless you can help me make sense of this notion of an external reason. I don't know. The only way that you're going to get out of my view is if you make the notion of an external reason intelligible. I just don't find it intelligible.
So you could possibly be manipulated in that way from an external source who understood the way you react to your moral code of when you should and when you ought not use logic and so forth.
Sure, yeah. I mean, like if I tell you when you're like, let's say you're gonna like in the death case, right? You're anxious, you're about to die, and I tell you it's gonna be all right. You're gonna be all right. I'm lying through my teeth. You're going down, okay? But I'm saying it's gonna be okay. It's gonna be okay, and then you calm down as a result. I've it's deceptive what I've done, but I did it for the reason.
It sounds like Shaitan.
Who?
I'm just kidding.
But it sounds like if your ought is conditional, then it's really in vain. It doesn't actually necessitate an ought at all. It's just whatever you decide
Well, look,
in whatever moment.
Do you agree that oughts are a function of reasons? Like if you look, this is my view. I'll just tell you my view rather than doing the whole Socratic method, street epistemologist crap. Okay, I'll give you my view straightforwardly. When I say I ought to do something, I just mean I have a reason to do it.
Don't say stuff like that. I'm drinking. You almost killed me.
The reason comes from.
So look, there's controversy in moral philosophy. Are reasons internal or external? Like, seems like, Jay, you're suggesting that there are external reasons. Kant thought there were external reasons. He called one kind of external reason pure reason, right? Okay. I agree with philosophers like Bernard Williams. I can't make sense of a reason if it's not motivational. Okay.
So you would say you ought to use logic when you deem it necessary.
I ought to use logic if I have a reason to be logical.
So that's just whenever there's no real terms to that, right?
I don't know what you mean there. Look,
there's
do you accept the concept of...
There's nothing actually binding you to the necessitation of using logic.
Let's just jump to your conclusion. Your conclusion is that there are external reasons, right? You have, in order to make what you're... Okay, then you agree with me.
I'm not disagreeing or agreeing. I'm just questioning you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I thought you were making a claim that...
I'm saying it sounds like from what I'm gathering from what you're saying is like there's no real ought.
I don't know what a real ought is.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm getting at. Like
I'm saying that
using the word ought.
People that I know that says real ought refer to external reason, right? So you accept external reasons if you believe in real oughts.
Saying you mentioned that you ought to use logic if the situation necessitates it, and you can abandon it if the situation calls for it, and so forth.
That is my view.
I'm trying to gather what you're saying there, and then say that it sounds to me like there's actually nothing grounded there. In fact, like it's not.
I don't know what you mean by
nothing
ground.
is binding that reality of what you're actually saying.
Look, yeah, I reject categorical norms. I reject external reasons. So, look, I agree with you that if they're categorical norms, if they're external reasons, that's to say, then that what you just said wouldn't be true, right? But I don't accept external reasons.
I don't think that was the issue I was driving at. But I'm just trying to question you a little bit deeper. It's fine. I can
look,
stop.
No, that's not all that you're doing. You're making a claim about something that if the situation necessitates X, and then in another case it necessitates the opposite of X, right? You're having anxiety about the fact that there's not uniformity and immutability of oughts there. Okay.
Well, no, I think that I'm trying to point out that you're claiming that the ought is changeable, so it's not really an ought or a moral. There's no binding.
Look, what you just said there presupposes the external reasons as intelligible. What you're saying there makes no sense if you do not accept external reasons. This is the third time I've expressed this.
But tell me more expand on that a little more. I'm interested in that.
Okay, so an internal reason is a reason and which motivates you. And these are taken to be beliefs and desires. If I believe that it's raining outside, that's a reason to think that it's to accept or reject. Yeah, Khalil, sorry.
I don't want to interrupt the conversation, but I have to go pray and I have to go eat some more because when it's daylight out, I'm not allowed to. So I got to go
Thanks for
put a whole
dropping
bunch
by.
of water and food in my system. Sure, no problem. It was awesome talking to you guys. And Danny, like I said, I sent you the link to the group chat. We do it every
Appreciate it.
single day, all day long. And Jay, if you find me on Facebook, we might already be friends on Facebook, and you want the link, I'll send you the link. Whenever you guys see the green button, you just join. But
All
All right, bro.
thank you,
Khalil.
Richard. Peace and respect.
Peace and respect, brother.
I'll
See
you
ya.
guys later.
Okay, so
And then
here's
there were two.
I'm going to say this, and then I'll give you the last word, Jay. Okay? Because I have to go.
I mean, I don't know about this format. You know, I'm not going to be bound to that format, but sure. Whatever
Okay,
you say.
sure. I'm just expressing that I have to go soon. Okay. So an internal reason is a reason that motivates you. Okay, that's how Bernard Williams.
Well, hold on. I want to stop you there for some clarifications. That's a very simplistic way of speaking of reality, right? Like an internal reason is something that motivates you. Like there's a whole slew of ideas and pathways to go down right there. Like the reason we do things, the meaning of that we claim behind the reasons that we do things, right? Like the fact that you take an atheist worldview, but you claim there's meaning to all sorts of things. Like, so right there, we'd have to stop and explore that more, I would say.
Okay, so I'm seeing where I'm trying to understand where you're contesting, right? These are far less controversial, right?
I mean, I'm really contesting your starting point. Actually, that's what it's going to come down to.
What can you give me the sentence or proposition that you're disagreeing with?
Like your presuppositions that you have that you're not aware of, perhaps.
Give me that presupposition.
Well, when you talk about an internal reason, you're presupposing that there is a material that's giving you a reason or giving you an inspiration. What is it, right?
An intentional state, so a belief or desire. Those motivate.
Sure. Where that I'm getting at is I'm driving at. Where's that derived from, right?
What is that derived from? That's ambiguous language. Are you saying what causes them?
I'm saying what is the driving force behind it? What material is it, for instance?
Oh, I think it's immaterial.
Good. And when you say it's immaterial, do you have any expansion on that idea?
Yeah, that it doesn't obey laws of nature.
Immaterial meaning it doesn't obey laws of nature?
Maybe it would be better to use these terms. I take beliefs and desires to be non-natural. Okay? The reason why they're non-natural is because there are no laws of beliefs and desires. There are no laws of nature that explain the causal interactions between beliefs and desires in other states.
Wow, how did you get there?
That's what I mean by natural.
Sorry.
How did I get to the fact that beliefs and desires are not governed by natural laws? Is that what you were asking?
Yeah, you could say that.
Yeah, because I take beliefs and desires to be normative. That's to say they express an ought. I take natural states to be descriptive. That means they don't express oughts.
So there's a moral inclination behind the desire, you're saying, the ought?
Well, look, there's things that you ought believe that are not moral. Like if I believe that it's raining outside, I should believe that there's water outside, right? But that's not moral, right?
Well, what necessitates that you should believe that?
My belief that it's raining outside. The meaning of what I'm accepting, right?
What necessitates that you're in line with it, I'm saying. Like you don't have to choose logic, right?
Right. I'm saying in the case where I believe that it's raining outside, I have an epistemic reason, right? That's to say a reason that confers knowledge that to believe that there's water outside. I don't have a practical reason necessarily to believe that there's water outside. I might have a practical reason to not believe that.
Okay. Where are we here?
Yeah, work on wrapping this up, guys, because we've been going a while. I really appreciate you guys' conversation.
Yeah, I have to go. So can we just end it here?
Sure.
Okay. Thanks for hosting, Richard. As always, you're a pleasant person. I'm glad I came on. Hopefully there'll be more.
I'm glad you did too. Thank you, Danny.
Bye, guys.
See ya. All right, Richard.
Okay, well, I'm interested in wrapping it up. Okay, so what did you just say while I was talking over you so rudely?
Sorry, I was just saying I'll see you next time then.
All right, great. You're welcome anytime, as is everyone who came in. Thank you very much, JG. Peace and respect to you. All right, guys, that's it for tonight. I hope you gained something, and I don't mean necessarily that you learned something, but maybe you just learned something about the people who were in the show, and maybe they learned some things about each other. So until next time, I want you all to know that I truly do look forward to the day that we're all great friends. Peace and respect.